welcome to Cherry Pie Math. This video is just going to give you a little bit more angles practice. If it's a little bit of a longer video, I apologize. Obviously, you don't have to watch all of it, but hopefully it'll kind of help you see where those patterns are, where you can see vertical angles in there, and what helpful hints might help. Like, sometimes it might seem like you're at a loss, and hopefully this video will help you figure out where your next move is going to be. So before we get started, you do need to be familiar with angle pair relationships, specifically those that I've listed. We're not going to be talking about alternate interior angles or corresponding angles or anything like that. And you also need to know triangle angle sum, that all the interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So here's a picture. Believe it or not, every single angle here can be solved using those angle pair relationships. For the sake of time, I'm going to just be going over them pretty, not fast. I'll still be explaining stuff while I'm doing it, I guess, but it probably won't be as in-depth as my other video, which I'm going to link. Okay, so let's get started. I'd like to look for vertical angles right away. So I know that I see vertical angles here, so I see this is 90. I'm going to use this here. So this is 90 here. Made by these two lines. That means this over here has to be 90 degrees as well. Oh, I don't know what I did there. There we go. So this has to be 90 degrees. I know that this here is 40. So that means this here has to be 40 as well. And then I actually already know that since this is 90, that this plus this has to equal to 90. So I know that this has to be equal to 50 degrees as well. Okay, so I've already solved for all of those. Excellent. Let's keep moving. I know that this is, again, I have vertical angles here, so I have this one and this one. I know that this is 90 degrees, but because it's supplementary, this is also going to be 90 degrees. And this here is also going to be 90 degrees. I know it's hard to see it, but we know that all of those have to be equal to 90 degrees because it's supplementary, which means that they add up to 180 degrees. Let's see, I know that this is 31.3 degrees there. And again, since I know that it has to add up to 180 degrees on a line, if I do 180 minus 31.3, I get 148.7 degrees, and that'll go over here as well. And then I know 180 minus 139.5 is 40.5. That goes there. And then I can use, again, vertical angles to fill in the other parts here. Vertical angles are so cool because you really just have to find one side of a line and then you can just mirror it to the other side of the line. I think that's super handy. Okay, so I believe that's all of them that I can do for now using supplementary and vertical angles. But that doesn't mean that there's not still stuff left to do. So the next thing I'm going to move on to is triangles. I know that a triangle has to be equal to 180 degrees. So for example, here's a triangle right here. I know that this plus this has to equal to 180. So if I do 180 minus 31.3 minus 40.5, I get 108.2, which is right there, which has to be my missing angle, because again, the triangle has to add up to 180 degrees, and then I just use vertical angles to mirror it over. And then I can do that 180 minus 108.2, and that gives me 71.8 degrees. And that fills out both sides of that. So that takes care of that bunch there. It's kind of easy. I don't know if you're noticing, but like you kind of do one vertex at a time. So this next vertex I'm going to do is here. And again, the same idea. I have a triangle right here. So if I do 180 minus 90 minus 40.5, well, let me do that again. I typed that in wrong. 180 minus 90 minus 40.5 is 49.5. That makes sense. And so I can mirror that over to my vertical angle. And then again, I can do 180 minus that. And I get 130.5, and that makes those two. It really is just find one of the angles, and then you can kind of fill in around the circle because you can use vertical angles and supplementary angles to fill in around it. Okay, now we need to find this one, and this vertex over here. These are a little bit trickier, and I designed them to be a little tricky as well. So we see these triangles pretty easily, but this next triangle actually has a line running through it. Do you notice this is a triangle as well? It still has to follow that whole thing about 180 degrees, right? So this here has to be 50 degrees as well, which means that I can now find this angle over here. So 180 minus 50 minus 49.5 is 80.5. And then I can do that over here. And then I do 180 minus 80.5, which would be 100, actually 99, wouldn't it? Now I'm doubting myself. I'm going to use a calculator. Ugh. Doing these videos is funny because, like, I know math. I have a degree. It is 99.5. I was right. I know math, and I know that I can do math, but then I get super nervous, and I'm like, what if I mess this up? I don't want everyone on the internet to hate me. Okay. So I have that group, and now let's move over, and we have another triangle. This triangle here. And now that I have this angle, because I had this angle, I can do 180 degrees again. And I know this is super repetitive. I make like note guides to go with these and activities, and this is meant to be like a classroom activity. But in case you gave this activity and they get super lost, hopefully this video helps as well. Okay, so I have 180 minus 50 minus 80.5 is 49.5. Oh, I need my pen for that. And then one more time, I just have to do 180 minus 49.5 is 130.5 degrees. Isn't that super cool? We were able to fill in all of those angles in this picture just with 5 of them. That's it. We were able to use those angle pairs to fill in the missing information. The biggest tricks, I think, is finding those triangles and finding those vertical angles. So conversely, you might be asked to use a protractor. For those of you that forgot how to use a protractor, let me remind you. So let's say I was going to find this angle right here. So I'm going to make this line, and then I make another line like this. And then I have to find that angle. If you have a protractor, the way you would use it is you make sure that one of the lines lines up. You make sure that that point there lines up with the corner. And the cool thing is I can make this bigger or smaller, and it will maintain the same. What? It'll maintain the same angle. So let me resize that again because I want to rotate it to match up. And so I need to make sure that bottom line is like horizontal with the bottom there. Well, that might be as good as I'm getting. So you can see it's going to be about 50 degrees. Just for whatever reason, it won't let me like make it in line with the bottom. Maybe that's it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's 50 degrees. There we go. And then you can use your protractor. I'm not going to do it for the entire picture because that would take way too long. But if you are given a protractor and you know that it is going to match up with the protractor, it is allowed to use it to find all of your missing angles. Personally, I don't prefer that method. I feel comfortable enough with using angle pairs and with using vertical angles to be able to solve my way through it. But when you're starting, sometimes it's helpful to check. And one big downside of the protractor is it is a little bit of guesswork. Because if you're using like algebra and you're just using like properties that you know are true, you're going to get the right answers. But like we just saw that if I was off by even just a little bit, that's going to mess up my answers completely. So there are some pros and cons to both ways. The nice thing about protractor is there's not a lot of guesswork involved. It's just human error. Whereas the other way, when you're using algebra, you are guaranteed to get a correct answer as long as you're doing the math correctly. But you need to do the math correctly and remember all those properties. Anyway, I hope that helps you kind of see the benefits of doing it algebraically versus with a protractor. Sorry again, that video was very fast, but always can go back and review it and make sure you know where all those numbers came from. Okay.